Hey, today we're going to talk about staffing and sales because I think that most people don't understand that there's a difference. You hear the words and they understand the difference, but most people think of me as a recruiter, even throughout my career. And while it's true, I did a lot of my own recruiting. In fact, I run a full desk now. For the first 6 years that I worked in the IT staffing industry, I actually, for 5.5 of those, was a salesperson. That's a very distinct role than the recruiter, and this is why it matters. There's a lot of information that's bad that's out there that talks about candidates and hiring managers being able to find each other without having recruiters involved. We're seen as an obstacle. I guess there's some nirvana explanation, and not the good kind with the 3 chords in a garage, but an explanation of somehow that magic happens if candidates can only talk to hiring managers and not have us recruiters, internal and external, get in the way. They see us as a roadblock to them getting what they want. It's a poor reading of how employment happens. The truth is that salespeople in particular and recruiters in the process actually grease the process. We make it happen. And this is why. If you're a candidate reaching out to a hiring manager, you actually know nothing about the company. Your ability to learn most of what you need to know about that company is going to come from their website, from other people, from people not in the department. The truth is, if you don't have a direct referral to the manager from somebody working there, there's no way for you to actually figure out what that manager needs, whether they're willing to hire, if you're the right person for it, and what it's like to work there. There's just no information for you to do that. On the other hand, a staffing firm can send out a salesperson who's paid $40,000 to $60,000 on salary plus commission to go out and call every manager they can find, to work with every company they can, to network and to sell basically their services, which means they gather information about the company. They find the difference. They're able to compare it, be able to figure out which companies are willing to hire, which ones are the best ones to work for. This is information that is important to the efficiency of the market. Without the salesperson, the recruiter isn't nearly as good. The candidates don't have those salespeople, and good hiring managers rely on their staffing salespeople to gather competitive intelligence on the market. So why does this all matter? Because salespeople in general tend to be looked at as just cold callers. In fact, hiring managers can't stand them, which is not true. They can't stand bad salespeople. But without those phone calls, without the attempt to find out who has pain in an industry, it becomes much harder to hire. The only thing worse, being a hiring manager and getting a ton of phone calls from staffing salespeople, is being a hiring manager in need and not having anybody call. Think about that for a second. Given the choice, would you rather have no calls or too many calls? At least with the too many calls, it shows that you're hiring, that things are going well, that people are speaking about you. These are good things to have because the right candidates can find you from that. If no one's calling, no one knows what you're like, no one asks you specific questions, you're left to do it on your own. And if you've ever posted a job post and tried to look through the resumes, all of a sudden you start to really appreciate recruiters because we give you a sanitized version of the employment process. So the reason I bring this up is because that efficiency in the market is a part of how outsourcing works. And Massachusetts is important because they were some of the first ones to do it. The textile mills that were in Lowell, Massachusetts, Lowell 1 and Lowell 2, going back a couple hundred years now, they really learned to do outsourcing very efficiently. In the United States, this is one of the first examples of how it was done. And the purpose of outsourcing is to save money. If I can do something better by giving someone else money to do it, I can save money or use my time more constructively. For example, I don't mow my lawn anymore. I feel bad about it because it's something every man should do. Occasionally I'll go over to my sister's and rake her lawn out of guilt. But I pay someone to mow my lawn and hedge my bushes because I'd rather spend that time with my family. And it's so much cheaper to do so than it is to actually do it myself. Now, should I actually suffer a giant loss in income, or just get a little older and not want to spend the money, I'm certainly able to go back and actually mow that lawn myself. But at the moment, it makes more sense to work and make more money per hour than the time it actually cost me to go out and mow the lawn myself. Why does this matter? Because outsourcing is often seen as an evil, when the reality is that outsourcing is a response to market conditions. And when you see recruiters internally going into a company, the reason that they're there is because the outsourcing got too expensive. It's not hard to, it's exactly the way that the market is supposed to work. If a company feels that it's spending too much in permanent placements, spending too much on its temporary staff, it brings the operations indoors. This is a well-known part of the markets. It is just the way things work. So recruiters in general don't have to be 100% efficient, and they can't necessarily be rich. What they do have to be is slightly better on the inside and more efficient than paying people to come inside themselves. Because the big difference is you can ramp up your recruiters inside and outside a lot faster if you're paying them on a temporary basis than if you bring them inside. This is just the way that markets work, and it's a good thing. When you have legislators that try to interfere with that, their thing is to make things more fair. But in being more fair, what they're really doing is actually telling the market that they don't have an information, or they don't have a need for the information that recruiting firms provide, which means the market is less efficient, which means less overall hiring. If there are no recruiters, there's less overall hiring. Think about that for a second. And if you're a recruiter that's out there in Massachusetts, good luck. I can tell you that if you're not involved in the political process, ultimately you become prey. So think about that next time you talk to a staffing salesperson. Pat them on the back, thank them, ask them some tough questions before you throw them out of your office. Just remember, if it weren't for them, there'd be even less hiring.